Welcome back, everyone. We are settling in for another deep dive today. And this one, it might just make you rethink that suffering you feel in the gym.
It really might.
Yeah,
We're talking about that feeling, you know the one, right? That intense, deep, almost fiery sensation
oh yeah.
that hits usually mid-set when you're pushing high reps. Squats, lateral raises, leg extensions. It makes you just want to drop everything.
Totally. For ages, we just thought, okay, muscle's tired. But now we're looking at it as, well, a strategy, a
Yes,
metabolic
let's-
strategy. Exactly. It's that burn you kind of dread, but also maybe secretly chase. And yeah, for the longest time, the fitness mantra was pretty simple. Lift heavy, go heavy or go home, right?
Right.
Mechanical tension, that was king. Still is in many ways.
Undisputed champ for pure strength. Absolutely. But there's this whole other side of the coin, this fascinating internal mechanism, metabolic stress.
And the research is showing it's not just like a side effect of hard work. It seems to be a really critical trigger for growth, for adaptation.
That's really our mission today.
Yeah.
We've dug into the sources, and we want to piece together the whole picture of metabolic stress for you. What is that burn scientifically?
Yeah, how does it actually drive muscle growth, like down at the cellular level, not just the feeling?
And maybe most importantly, how can you actually use it? How do you blend it with heavy lifting to get, the best possible results, balanced results?
We need to get past just calling it the pump
Mhm.
and understand the real signaling going on. It's about using that burn strategically.
Mhm.
And speaking of clear info, if you're ever looking for solid, easy to understand articles on fitness, nutrition, wellness, all that stuff, definitely check out bfit.ai.
Yeah, great resource. Free, practical stuff. We use it a lot when prepping for these dives.
Totally. Okay, so let's get into the science. Let's break down this burn.
All right, so let's start with what most people experience. You're doing those higher rep sets, maybe 15, 20, even 25 reps.
Yeah, the ones that really start to bite.
Exactly. And that sharp kind of pain kicks in. The natural assumption is just, okay, my muscles are out of fuel.
Running on empty.
And while, yeah, energy depletion is part of it, what you're really feeling, scientifically, is metabolic stress. It's a direct result of your muscles working anaerobically without enough oxygen.
Okay, so we feel the burn, but let's peel back the layers. What's actually causing that feeling? What's building up inside the muscle fiber? Like traffic jam, you said.
That's a good way to put it. At its core, metabolic stress is this rapid buildup of metabolic byproducts, or waste products. We just call them metabolites.
Okay.
They accumulate inside the muscle cells because the muscle is contracting so intensely and repeatedly that it can't clear them out fast enough. You're producing waste faster than you can remove it.
And we can actually name these culprits, right? It's important because the type of metabolite seems to dictate the signals the cell sends.
Absolutely crucial point. The main players causing that signature burn and the fatigue that follows are lactate, inorganic phosphate, often just written as pi, and hydrogen ions, H plus sema.
Now, hold on. Lactate often gets a bad rap, doesn't it? Like lactic acid burn.
It does. Total misconception, really. Lactate itself isn't the villain. Your body can actually use it as a kind of emergency fuel source.
Mm-hmm.
The real culprits behind the pain and the performance drop-off are the other two.
Okay, so hydrogen ions and inorganic phosphate, how do they cause the burn and fatigue? Let's get into the weeds a bit.
So the hydrogen ions, H, plus they're the primary reason for the acidity. That's the burn feeling. As your body rapidly breaks down ATP, it's energy currency without oxygen.
The anaerobic pathway.
Right. Hydrogen ions get released as a byproduct. This causes the pH level inside the muscle cell to drop sharply. It gets more acidic.
Okay, acid buildup. Makes sense for a burning feeling.
And that acidity directly interferes with the muscle's contraction machinery. Specifically, it inhibits how actin and myosin, the proteins that slide to make muscles contract, interact.
So the H plus ions literally get in the way. They gum up the works, like you said.
Pretty much.
Wow.
They slow down that sliding mechanism, which leads to a really rapid decrease in how much force the muscle can produce.
So the burning feeling is the acidity, and that acidity directly makes the muscle weaker almost instantly. It's like a built-in safety switch.
It really is. And then you have inorganic phosphate pi, adding to the problem. As ATP is broken down, pi levels also rise.
Okay? And pi interferes with another critical step, the release of calcium ions from storage within the muscle cell. Calcium is what triggers the whole contraction cycle to start, so double whammy. Hydrogen ions block the contraction itself, and phosphate messes with the trigger for contraction.
Exactly. The combined effect is this sudden, steep drop in force production. The muscle cell senses this fatigue, this dangerous drop in pH, as an extreme stressor. a threat. And that threat is the adaptive signal we're trying to tap into.
Okay, that makes sense. And what's the physical process driving this pileup? You mentioned lack of oxygen.
Right. This metabolite accumulation really takes off when the muscles contract so hard and fast that blood flow gets partially squeezed off. Think of squeezing a sponge.
Okay, yeah.
This temporary restriction means less fresh, oxygenated blood can get in, and less waste-filled blood can get out. Oxygen levels inside the muscle drop. That state is called hypoxia.
Hypoxia, oxygen deficit.
And when the muscle can't get enough oxygen for efficient aerobic energy production, it's forced to rely heavily on those faster but much messier anaerobic pathways.
Which churn out those metabolites H plus and pi really quickly.
Exactly. And the temporary squeeze, the hypoxia, plus the buildup of waste products inside the cell, that's what causes that familiar swelling, the pump.
Ah, so the pump isn't just cosmetic. It's the physical sign that metabolic stress is happening. Blood and metabolites are literally getting trapped inside the muscle. It's the physical manifestation, yeah. Which leads us nicely into contrasting this with the other big player, mechanical tension. For decades, this was seen as pretty much the only way to grow muscle. Lift heavy.
That's right. Mechanical tension is more straightforward, isn't it? It's the force from the heavy weight itself. When you lower a heavy dumbbell during a curl, the weight physically stretches the muscle fibers, causes that microtrauma, those tiny tears.
Yeah, and that physical stretch and force are detected by the muscle cells.
Critically important. That external force directly stretches the cell membrane and specialized sensors within the muscle fiber. This sends a powerful, direct signal.
Primarily activating that mTOR pathway you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. mTOR is like the master switch for building new muscle protein. That's why heavy lifting is, and honestly always will be, fundamental for getting maximally strong. It flips that switch directly.
Okay, so mechanical tension is force from the outside, stretching the fibers. Metabolic stress, then, is more like force from the inside.
That's a perfect way to think about it. Tension from within the muscle. Instead of relying purely on the external weight, it relies on high reps, high volume, that temporary lack of blood flow.
Creating that hypoxic, high-pressure environment inside the cell.
Right, the cell is literally swelling up with fluid and waste products, pushing out against the cell walls. That's a different kind of tension.
So mechanical tension pulls on the fibers. Metabolic stress pushes out from inside them.
Essentially, yes. And the really crucial takeaway, which all the research emphasizes, is that metabolic stress seems to work best when it's combined with mechanical tension. They're not rivals, they're partners.
Okay, so how does that synergy work?
You use the heavy lifts, the mechanical tension, to get that direct mTOR signal and make sure you're recruiting those big, powerful, high-threshold muscle fiber.
The ones needed for strength.
Right. Then you add the metabolic stress work, the high reps, the burn to maximize the internal signaling, that cell swelling effect, and trigger a cascade of other growth-related factors like hormones.
So it's not about choosing one or the other, it's about layering them. Heavy weights signal the initial damage and strength adaptation, and then the burn comes in to kind of amplify the repair and growth response from a different angle.
Precisely. They target different complementary aspects of the whole muscle growth process.
Okay, this is getting really interesting. We've established the burn hurts because the cell environment gets acidic and messy with metabolites. But why does this internal chaos actually signal the muscle to grow bigger and stronger? What's the body's response?
It's actually a really elegant, multi-layered biological response. When that metabolic stress hits hard and fast, the body thinks, okay, emergency, deploy resources.
Anabolic resources, presumably. Growth signals.
Exactly. One of the immediate responses is a noticeable, though temporary, spike in certain hormones circulating in the blood. Primarily, we see a jump in growth hormone, GH, and insulin-like growth factor 1, IGF-1.
Ah, GH and IGF-1, the big anabolic players. But wait, you said temporary spike. How much does that really matter? Don't those hormones clear out pretty quickly after the workout? Is a short burst enough to drive long-term growth?
That's a really important question. And the research is actually a bit nuanced there. While some studies show a correlation between these hormone spikes and growth, others suggest the systemic spike, the overall level in your bloodstream, might not be the main driver of long-term hypertrophy for everyone.
Okay, so it's not just about flooding the whole body with GH.
Probably not the main thing. It's more likely about the local effect. Having those growth factors present right there in the muscle while it's experiencing that stress and swelling might enhance the muscle's sensitivity to other growth signals or support recovery. But it's not the whole story.
Okay, so if the hormone spike isn't the primary driver, what is the big growth signal coming from that metabolic burn?
Many researchers now believe the most powerful signal is the cell swelling itself, the pump.
Seriously, the pump is actually a growth signal.
It seems so. Remember how we said metabolic stress traps blood and fluid inside the muscle? That causes the muscle cells to swell up, stretching their outer membranes? That physical stretch of the cell membrane is detected by sensors within the cell wall structures called mechanoreceptors. And that stretch is interpreted as a major threat to the cell's integrity.
So the cell basically thinks, whoa, I'm about to burst. I need to reinforce my walls.
That's the idea. The cell responds to that intense internal pressure by activating pathways that not only boost muscle protein synthesis, building more contractile bits like actin and myosin, but also by strengthening the cell structure itself. It reduces protein breakdown too.
Wow. So the pump isn't just a temporary cosmetic thing. The physical stretch itself is a direct signal. Get bigger and tougher. That really reframes the whole experience. It absolutely does. It connects that feeling of fullness directly to a physiological command for growth. This likely contributes significantly to what's called sarcoplasmic hypertrophy growth in the fluid and non-contractile elements within the muscle cell, which definitely adds to overall muscle size.
Okay, hormones play a supporting role. Cell swelling is a major trigger.
Yeah.
What else? How does fiber recruitment fit into this? Because metabolic stress involves fatigue, right? Massive fatigue. And that's key for recruitment. This goes back to something called the size principle of motor unit recruitment.
Okay, refresh my memory on that.
Basically, when you start any movement, your nervous system is efficient. It first recruits the smallest, easiest to activate motor units. These are typically connected to your type I, slow twitch, endurance-focused muscle fibers.
Got it. Start small.
But during intense, high-rep metabolic stress work, those initial type I fibers get overwhelmed very quickly by the metabolite buildup and the lack of oxygen. They fatigue rapidly and can't maintain the required force.
So the body has to call in reinforcements.
Exactly. To keep the movement going, the nervous system has no choice but to recruit progressively larger, higher threshold motor units. And these are connected to the bigger, more powerful type TIA and type TI fast-twitch muscle fibers.
The fibers that are usually only fully tapped when you're lifting really heavy, near your max effort.
Precisely. So by inducing extreme fatigue through metabolic stress, you essentially force the recruitment of those powerful fast-twitch fibers, even if the actual weight you're lifting is only, say, 50% of your maximum.
So metabolic stress is like a backdoor way to stimulate those growth-prone fast-twitch fibers without necessarily needing super heavy weights.
That's a great way to put it. You achieve near maximal fiber activation across the board, slow and fast twitch because the fatigue is so profound. This creates a really potent stimulus for overall hypertrophy that you might not get from just low-intensity endurance work alone. So, summing up the mechanism, the metabolite buildup causes the burn and fatigue, the cell swelling signals the need to reinforce, and the intense fatigue forces the recruitment of pretty much all available muscle fibers. It's a powerful combination. The fluid shifts in, the cell stretches and responds by wanting to get stronger, and the fatigue ensures you're hitting everything. It's a highly efficient way to signal growth.
Okay, we usually think hypertrophy getting bigger when we talk lifting. But you mentioned metabolic stress training has benefits beyond just size. What are those?
Yeah, definitely. One huge appeal, particularly for certain groups, is that it's generally much gentler on the joints.
How so?
Well, because most metabolic stress techniques use lighter weights, maybe 40 to 60% of your one rep max, sometimes even less with things like BFR, there's significantly less compressive force and shear stress on your cartilage, tendons, and ligaments compared to maximal heavy lifting.
That's massive. So someone recovering from, say, shoulder surgery or maybe an older lifter worried about knee pain.
Exactly. Or anyone dealing with chronic joint issues. They might not be able to handle the heavy loads needed for pure mechanical tension training, but they can still use lighter weights with high reps or specific techniques to generate that intense metabolic stress.
And still get a powerful muscle-building signal without punishing their joints.
It's a really valuable tool for maintaining muscle mass and function while managing joint health or during rehabilitation. You get high muscle activation without the high external load.
Okay, joint health is a big one. What about endurance and overall systemic health?
Significant benefits there too. Training with those higher reps, and crucially the short rest periods, is fantastic for improving muscular endurance. Your muscles literally get better at handling that metabolic stress over time.
How does it happen physiologically?
A key adaptation is increased capillarization. Your body actually builds more capillaries, tiny blood vessels, within the trained muscles.
Like building more roads into the muscle tissue.
Exactly. More roads mean better delivery of oxygen and nutrients in, and faster removal of metabolic waste products like those hydrogen ions out.
So it improves the muscle's plumbing system, which should help with recovery, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Better blood flow means faster clearance of metabolites during the workout, potentially allowing you to push harder for longer. And between workouts, it means nutrients for repair get delivered more efficiently, speeding up recovery.
Okay, better endurance, better recovery. Any impact on overall metabolic health, like blood sugar or fat loss?
Yes, definitely. This type of training places a high demand on glucose metabolism. By repeatedly challenging the muscles this way, you can improve your body's sensitivity to insulin.
How?
It encourages the muscle cells to take up glucose more effectively from the bloodstream, partly by stimulating GLUT4 translocation, basically moving glucose transporters to the cell surface where they can grab sugar. This is great for blood sugar management.
And the hormonal response we talked about, GH, IGF-1, some sources suggest those can also support fat metabolism.
Yes, growth hormone in particular has lipolytic effects, meaning it helps break down fat. So while it's not a primary fat loss method like diet and cardio, the hormonal environment created by metabolic stress training can certainly be supportive of leaning out. So wrapping up the benefits. It's easier on the joints, boosts muscle endurance, improves blood flow and recovery, and contributes positively to metabolic health and potentially fat loss. It's a pretty comprehensive package beyond just making muscles bigger.
All right, this is great. We know why it works now. Let's get practical. How do we actually do it? We need to keep the muscles under tension long enough for those metabolites to really pile up. What are the tools in the toolbox?
Okay, the most straightforward, basic method is simply manipulating your reps and rest. We're talking high repetitions combined with short rest periods,
What kind of numbers are we looking at?
typically aiming for the 12 to 20 repetition range, sometimes even pushing into the 20-30 rep zone for certain exercises or finishers. The key is using a moderate weight, something where you're hitting or getting very close to muscle failure within that target rep range.
And the rest period is critical, you said.
Absolutely crucial. If you take long rests, say 2-3 minutes like you might for heavy strength sets, your body has too much time to clear out those metabolites and restore pH balance. The stress diminishes.
So you need to keep the pressure on.
Exactly. The recommendation is typically short rest periods, usually just 30 to 45 seconds between sets. This maintains that continuous tension and ensures the metabolite buildup keeps climbing across your sets.
That sounds intense. Where would you typically program this kind of high rep, short rest work?
It works really well as a finisher at the end of your workout. You've already done your main heavy compound lifts for mechanical tension.
Right, your squats, presses, rows.
Yeah. Then you add maybe 1 or 2 exercises done in this high rep, short rest style for the target muscle group. It's a great way to maximize that metabolic stress, the pump, the hormonal response right when the muscle's already fatigued.
Okay, high reps, short rest. What's next? Techniques designed for unrelenting tension.
Supersets and drop sets. These are specifically designed to minimize rest and maximize time under tension, forcing that metabolite accumulation.
Ah, yes. Everyone who lifts has a love-hate relationship with drop sets, I think. That feeling on the last drop. Pure survival mode.
Exactly. But now you know why it feels that way and why it works. You're just flooding the muscle with metabolites because there's basically no rest.
So define them quickly. Supersets.
Supersets involve performing 2 different exercises back to back with absolutely minimal or ideally 0 rest in between. Often it's for the same muscle group, like a bench press followed immediately by dumbbell flies, or opposing muscle groups, like bicep curls followed by triceps pushdowns.
So the first exercise fatigues the muscle. Then the second one pushes it over the metabolic edge because there's no recovery time.
That's the idea. Keep the muscle working, keep the blood flow restricted, keep the metabolites rising.
And drop sets.
Drop sets are maybe even more intense metabolically. You perform a set of an exercise until you reach, or get very close to, muscle failure. Then you immediately reduce the weight, usually by about 20 to 30%, and bang out more reps until failure again.
And you can repeat that process multiple times, dropping the weight further each time.
Yep, you might do 2, 3, or even 4 drops within a single extended set. It's an incredibly potent way to maximize fatigue and metabolic stress because the muscle is working almost continuously at high intensity.
Brutal. Okay, what about slowing things down? Time under tension or TUT?
Right. This isn't about reps so much as it is about how long the muscle is actively working during a set. Techniques here include using slow negatives, also called eccentrics, and isometric holds.
Slow negatives, that's controlling the lowering phase of the lift, right?
Exactly. Instead of just letting gravity take the weight down, you actively resist it, maybe taking 3, 4, even 5 seconds to lower the weight on each rep. This dramatically increases the total time the muscle is under tension during the set.
And that extra time under load, especially on the eccentric, restricts blood flow and builds metabolites.
Yes, and it also causes significant muscle damage, which is another stimulus for growth. Then you have isometric holds, pausing and holding the weight at a specific point in the range of motion, usually the most difficult point.
Like holding a squat at the bottom or a curl halfway up?
Precisely. These holds trap blood in the muscle, creating an occlusion effect and rapidly increasing metabolic stress without necessarily doing more reps. The sources mentioned a specific, pretty advanced TUT technique, the regressive concentric isometric protocol. Can we walk through that? It sounded intense but effective.
Yeah, that's a fascinating one, designed specifically to maximize that blood trapping effect and spike lactate and growth hormone. Let's use a dumbbell curl as an example.
Okay.
Just use a moderate weight, maybe something you could normally curl 15, 20 times straight, let's say 40, 60% of your max.
Got it. Light to moderate. You start by performing 5 normal concentric reps, curling the weight up. Immediately after the 5th rep, without lowering the weight, you hold it isometrically halfway up where the bicep is maximally contracted for 5 seconds.
Okay, 5 reps, then a 5-second hold. That's set 1.
That's set 1. Then you take a very short rest, maybe just 30 seconds. Enough to catch your breath, but not clear the metabolites.
And then the regressive part comes in.
Exactly. For set 2, you do 4 reps, followed immediately by a 4-second isometric hold. Rest 30 seconds. Set 3 is 3 reps, then a 3-second hold.
Ah, I see. You keep reducing the reps and hold time each set.
Right. You continue down 2 reps, 2-second hold, 1 rep, 1-second hold, until you reach complete failure and can't even manage the required reps or hold. That cumulative time spent in the isometric hold keeps blood trapped, floods the muscle with metabolites, and is thought to create a really significant GH response. That sounds incredibly challenging, but a very direct way to maximize that internal pressure and signaling. Okay, moving on to a technique that's gained a lot of traction, especially for rehab, blood flow restriction, or BFR. BFR is really interesting science. It involves using specialized cuffs, kind of like blood pressure cuffs, or elastic bands placed high up on the limb, upper arm, or upper thigh.
And what do the cuffs do?
They're inflated or tightened to a specific pressure that partially restricts venous blood flow out of the limb while still allowing arterial blood flow into the limb.
So blood can get in, but it struggles to get out, trapping it.
Exactly. This creates an occlusion effect, similar to the isometrics or intense contractions, but you achieve it passively with the cuff pressure.
And the big advantage here is
The big advantage is that this venous pooling rapidly accelerates the buildup of metabolites within the muscle, even with very light exercise. You can stimulate muscle growth pathways using incredibly light weights, often just 20 to 30% of your 1 rep max.
wow. So you get the metabolic stress signal without needing heavy load at all.
Pretty much.
Uh,
That's why it's so valuable for people who can't lift heavy due to injury, surgery, or severe joint pain. They can still get an anabolic stimulus.
Is there a standard BFR protocol?
A common approach is to use that very light load and perform 1 set of 30 repetitions, followed by 3 sets of 15 repetitions. The key is the rest periods between those 15 rep sets are kept very short again, around 30 seconds. The goal is continuous work under occlusion.
It sounds effective, but I imagine safety is paramount here. You can't just tie a tourniquet around your arm, right?
Absolutely not. This needs to be emphasized strongly. Proper BFR requires specialized, often pneumatic, cuffs that allow for precise pressure control. You can't just guess with a random band.
What's the risk?
Using improper equipment or excessive pressure can be dangerous. It could lead to nerve damage, blood clots, or other tissue damage. You need to find the right occlusion pressure for your individual limb, usually measured as a percentage of the pressure needed to fully stop arterial flow. Limb occlusion pressure, or LOP.
So how do you know the right pressure?
This is where guidance is crucial. Ideally, you should learn from a certified professional, a physical therapist or trainer experienced in BFR. They can measure your LOP and teach you the correct pressure, usually 40–50% LOP for arms, 60–80% for legs, and application. Never ignore numbness, tingling, or excessive pain. If it feels wrong, stop immediately.
Okay, strong safety warning noted. What are the last few tools? High rep finishers and cluster sets.
Yeah, simpler techniques, high rep finishers are just what they sound like. After you've done your main workout, you pick an accessory exercise, maybe leg press after squats or push-ups after benching, and just blast out one final high rep set, like 20, 25, even 30 reps, with minimal rest beforehand. Just push till you can't push anymore to maximize that final pump.
Get every last drop out of the tank metabolically.
Exactly. And cluster sets are a bit more structured. They involve breaking down a traditional set into several smaller mini sets or clusters with very short intraset rest periods.
Okay, how does that work? Give me an example. A classic example for maximizing pump might be take your 10 rep max weight for an exercise, say barbell curls. Instead of doing 10 reps straight, you do 4 reps, rack the weight, rest for just 10 seconds, pick it up, do another 4 reps, rack it, rest 10 seconds, and you repeat that how many times?
Maybe 5 times in total. So you end up doing 20 reps, 5 clusters of 4 reps, with a weight you could normally only do for 10 straight reps.
How does that boost metabolic stress? You're resting, albeit briefly.
That 10-second pause is the clever part. It's just enough time to replenish a tiny bit of your immediate energy source, ATP creatine phosphate, allowing you to maintain better strength and form for the next cluster of 4 reps.
Oh.
But it's nowhere near long enough for your body to clear out the accumulating metabolites like hydrogen ions and phosphate. So you maintain high force output and accumulate significant metabolic stress over the course of the entire cluster set. It's a way to get more high-quality volume in under fatigue. Okay, that's a comprehensive toolkit. High rep short rests, supersets, drop sets, slow negatives, isometrics, BFR, finishers, cluster sets, lots of options. Now let's pull back. We have all these cool techniques. Does this mean we can just forget about lifting heavy? Can we just chase the burn all the time? No, absolutely not. And this is probably the most critical point of balance. Metabolic stress is a fantastic tool, especially for hypertrophy and joint health, but it cannot replace mechanical tension if your goal includes maximizing strength.
Why not? If it stimulates growth?
Because maximum strength, your ability to produce the highest possible force, relies heavily on neurological adaptations and maximizing the activation of those highest threshold motor units. And the most potent stimulus for that is trying to lift very heavy weights.
It's a mechanical tension signal.
Exactly. Heavy lifting forces those adaptations in a way that lighter weight, metabolic stress-focused training generally doesn't, or at least not to the same degree. You need the heavy loads to truly push your strength ceiling. Metabolic work builds the muscle size and endurance. Heavy work builds the top-end force production.
So if you only did high-rep burn work, you'd likely get bigger, but you probably wouldn't get maximally strong.
That's the general consensus, yes. You need both signals for optimal, well-rounded development. Plus, there's a real danger in overdoing the metabolic stress stuff. The risk of overtraining is quite high.
Explain that. What does overtraining look like in this context? It's not just being sore, right?
You know, it's much more systemic.
Yeah.
These high-volume, high-intensity short rest sessions are incredibly demanding on your body's energy systems, particularly those anaerobic pathways.
Yeah.
They also put a significant strain on your central nervous system, CNS. If you hammer this type of training day after day without enough recovery, and recovery means adequate sleep, proper nutrition, hydration, stress management, you can push yourself into a state of non-functional overreaching or even full-blown overtraining syndrome.
What are the symptoms?
Persistent fatigue that sleep doesn't fix, decreased performance in the gym, trouble sleeping, mood disturbances, maybe getting sick more often, loss of appetite, nagging injuries. Your body's hormonal balance gets disrupted, too much cortisol, not enough anabolic hormones. Eventually, you can even start losing muscle mass.
So chasing the burn too hard, too often can actually backfire and make you weaker and smaller?
It absolutely can. You have to be smart about applying the stress and prioritizing recovery. And related to that, we have to remember everyone's different.
Individual response, right.
Hugely important. Your genetics, your natural hormone levels, how long you've been training, your recovery capacity, your age. All these factors influence how you respond to metabolic stress training.
So what works wonders for one person might totally fry someone else.
Exactly. A beginner might get great results from just adding a couple of 15-rep sets at the end of their workout. An advanced bodybuilder might need BFR or complex drop sets to get a novel stimulus. Someone recovering from injury will have different needs again.
So you really need to listen to your body, track your progress, and adjust the volume and intensity based on how you're feeling and recovering?
Self-awareness and willingness to adjust the plan are key. It's not one size fits all.
Okay. And one last safety point before we talk about putting it all together. Form. When you're deep in a drop set, burning like crazy.
Form often goes out the window. People start cheating reps, using momentum, letting their technique break down just to keep moving.
Which is risky.
Very risky. You cannot sacrifice good, safe technique just to chase a more intense burn. That's how injuries happen. If your form degrades significantly, stop the set. And always differentiate between the deep muscle burn of fatigue and sharp, localized joint pain. Stop immediately if you feel actual pain.
Good advice. Okay, so let's synthesize. We know we need both mechanical tension and metabolic stress. We know the risks. How do we actually build an optimal program? What does a good blend look like in practice?
The best approach usually involves incorporating elements of all three primary hypertrophy mechanisms: mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscle damage, often within the same workout, or at least within the same training week.
So how would you structure a typical workout session to hit all those?
You generally want to start with the activities requiring the most force and neural drive, the heavy lifting.
Okay, so begin with heavy compound exercises.
Exactly. Start your workout with your big multi-joint lifts like squats, deadlifts, bench presses, overhead presses, rows. Do these in a lower rep range, maybe 3 to 6 reps, focusing on lifting heavy with good form. This takes care of the primary mechanical tension stimulus and recruits those high threshold motor units when you're fresh.
Foundation first. Then what?
Then you typically move into your accessory or assistance exercises. These are often isolation movements or less demanding compound lifts. Here, you'd use a moderate rep range, say 8 to 12 reps.
So this provides more volume, continues the muscle building stimulus, maybe causes a bit more muscle damage?
Right. It bridges the gap between pure strength and pure metabolic work. Still challenging, controlled reps, focusing on the target muscle.
And then finally, unleash the burn.
That's usually the best place for it. You finish off the muscle group with 1 or 2 exercises using those high-rep metabolic stress techniques we discussed, maybe drop sets on leg extensions or supersets for biceps and triceps, or a high-rep finisher like 20-plus reps on lateral raises.
Pushing 12 to 20 reps or even more with short rests.
Exactly. This is where you maximize the pump, the cell swelling, the metabolite accumulation, and that hormonal response right at the end when the muscle is already fatigued.
Okay, that makes sense for structuring a single workout. What about over the longer term, weeks and months? Periodization.
Periodization is really important to manage fatigue and keep making progress. You shouldn't just do the same blend forever. You can cycle your emphasis.
Like have a strength-focused block, then a metabolic-focused block.
That's a common approach. You might spend, say, 4 to 6 weeks focusing primarily on heavy lifting, mechanical tension, maybe only including 1 metabolic finisher per workout. Then you could shift for the next maybe 2 to 3 weeks into a phase where you reduce the really heavy loads and increase the volume of metabolic stress work, more high reps, drop sets, supersets, maybe incorporating BFR.
So you deliberately push one adaptation stimulus harder for a period, then back off and push another?
Right. It allows you to really maximize the gains from each type of stimulant while giving your body a break from the other, helping prevent plateaus and burnout. Then you cycle back.
And regardless of the phase, recovery is key. How much rest between hitting the same muscle group hard, especially with high volume metabolic work?
The general guideline is at least 48 hours, and often 72 hours or even more, especially after a really demanding high-volume session. Your muscles need time to repair the damage, replenish energy stores, and adapt to the stress you imposed. You can't just smash the same muscles with high-rep drop sets every day.
Okay, so balance within the workout, balance across the week, and balance over training cycles. It's about using the burn strategically, not just enduring it constantly.
Precisely. It's turning that painful sensation into a calculated input for growth. So wrapping this all up, the big takeaway seems clear. That burn, that metabolic stress, it's way more than just feeling pumped. It's a real, scientifically validated pathway to muscle growth. A powerful one that complements the effects of heavy lifting. It allows you to trigger growth signals, improve endurance, and potentially spare your joints, all by manipulating the internal environment of the muscle cell. And if we address those common questions head on, do you need it to grow? Maybe not exclusively, but it definitely helps, especially when combined with heavy work. Can it replace heavy lifting for strength? No, they're partners. Both are valuable tools in the toolbox. And for actually starting, don't go crazy. Maybe add 1 or 2 high-rep finishers to your existing workouts each week. See how your body responds.
Alternate those days with your heavier strength days. Give yourself recovery time. And here's that final thought to take with you. Now that you understand the science behind the burn-on, the hydrogen ions, the cell swelling, the fiber recruitment, how does that change your perspective next time you feel it?
Yeah, does it shift from being just, ooh, this hurts, to, okay, this is the signal, this is the process happening?
From just pain to a deliberate growth trigger you're pulling. That shift in mindset can be powerful.
That's a great point. It's the difference between just going through the motions and training with intent. We really hope this deep dive helps you understand and maybe implement some of these techniques safely and effectively.
Remember to experiment, listen to your body, find what works for you. And definitely check out bfit.ai if you want more practical, clearly explained resources on fitness, nutrition, all that good stuff.
And as always, especially if you're considering advanced techniques like BFR, please consult with a qualified professional first. Your safety comes first.
Absolutely. Be smart, be safe. Thanks so much for tuning in to the deep dive. Until next time, keep training smart and maybe embrace that burn just a little bit more strategically.
Be well, everyone.